Good morning, everyone. We'll just give it a few minutes to let some more participants join. But thank you, everyone, for joining so far. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Freya. Good morning, colleagues and everyone.
Well, it's 5 past now, and I can see there's around 19 attendees. So maybe we could make a start just in the interest of time, and then obviously colleagues will join as we go forward. Does that sound okay, Rebecca?
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Thanks, Freya. Thank you very much for that. Hello to everyone. My name is Rebecca Ackerman, and I work for the support project of the implementation of the Paris Agreement, and there on the partnership on transparency in the Paris Agreement, shortly known as PATPA. And I'll be your moderator for today. It's really great to see a lot of people here today and still coming in. So this is the pre-training webinar for the training that will be happening in the Seychelles for the Anglophone African network from the 6th to the 9th of May in the Seychelles, in Mahe on the Seychelles. And we will be looking at fostering the linkages between the BTRs and the NDCs, and they're especially looking at NDC tracking projections and support needed and received. But we will be going more into the agenda later, and the colleagues will be presenting what exactly you can be expecting and how you can prepare for this training. To get started, I would like to hand over to Kitsiwe Kumalo from the CBIT GSP program for a short welcome and some opening remarks. So maybe Freya, if you could go back a couple of slides and then some opening remarks in the photo. So maybe, yes, that's wonderful. Over to you, Kitsiwe.
Thank you very much, Rebecca, and good morning and good afternoon to all of us here, and welcome to all the countries that are represented here today. It is really a great pleasure for me to be with you here in this pre-training webinar, which is organized in preparation for the upcoming regional training for the Anglophone Africa Transparency Network, focused on the linkages between the nationally determined contributions and the biennial transparency report. Is really a pleasure. And I would like to acknowledge and thank sincerely our partners here who are co-organizing with us and supporting the efforts of the Anglophone Africa Network, which is the African Union Commission and the Partnership on Transparency in the Paris Agreement, PATA, and the UNFCCC Secretariat and the consultative group of experts and the Commonwealth Secretariat. And we really want to thank you for the partnership and continued collaboration and support in making these regional engagements possible, and supporting all the transparency efforts for the Anglophone African countries. So colleagues, we are meeting again this year for our Anglophone annual regional training. And this year, the focus of the training is trying to explore the linkages between the NDCs and the BTRs. And this has been really inspired in understanding what countries are currently working on. Many countries have submitted their first BTR. I think congratulations to all those countries, and really strength and encouragement to the countries that are still working on their first BTRs. And we know that also countries are preparing their NDC 3.0 in trying to ensure that they meet the submission deadline ahead of COP30. And therefore, this becomes very essential to ensure that we look at these two processes much more deeply and see how they are connected. And this will help us to understand much better how we can align ourselves at national level to ensure that we are not duplicating efforts, but also we are actually having incremental efforts in terms of how we are preparing and organizing ourselves to prepare this very important reports. And I think, to me personally, I think these days actually the sides of the same coin. When I look at an NDC, when I look at a BTR, I understand that this is really there's two sides of the same coin. We are talking about one and the same thing. So let me explain what I mean by this. When you look at your NDC, the NDC outlines what your goals, what your climate goals are, what are the plans, what are the measures that you are going to put in place, the policies that you are putting in place to ensure that you are meeting your climate goals. And on the other side, you have the BTR, which is really a very useful mechanism that is trying to help you track, access, and also report on progress, on the implementation that you are making, and ensuring that your NDC or the measures, the policies that you have put in place are really helping you to achieve the goals that you have put in place. And in essence, therefore, the BTR is not an add-on, but an extension of the NDC process itself. And we should look at it as a tool that helps countries to demonstrate accountability, but also build trust in the overall international climate process, and also improve climate action at a national level. And I was just talking to my colleague yesterday that, to me, I see, if you are saying countries are preparing NDC and there is also a preparation of a BTR, if these processes are separate, it's like you are saying to someone, behind this wall, there's someone who is drawing an animal, and on the other side, you are tasked to draw the tail of that animal. if you don't know what animal is being drawn on the other side of the wall, you might draw a tail of a horse, and when the wall is removed, you find out the animal on the other side is an elephant. So the tail does not fit this animal. So therefore, we need to look at NDCs and BTR as one thing and remove the wall in between the two processes so that it is clear that when we are tracking progress, we are actually looking deeply in the NDC itself in terms of how well are we implementing the NDC? Are we achieving what we initially intended to achieve? So understanding this connection allow us to streamline efforts to strengthen institutional arrangement and ultimately improve on our data and coherence of our national climate reporting. And as we are preparing for this regional training, I would like to encourage all of us to come ready, not only to learn, but also to share your experiences, your lessons learned, and your best practices. As we know, it is within the spirit of the Paris Agreement, the improvement over time. So the regional network training is not just a capacity building event, but please use it. It is your platform for peer exchange, for collaboration and mutual support among all the countries that are in this network. So we hope that this space will foster meaningful connections and contribute to the growing momentum on climate transparency across the region. As I conclude, I also want to thank sincerely the government of the Seychelles for hosting us this year, where we are going to have our training. And thank you very much to the government and the colleagues on the other side that we keep on exchanging email, and we are really looking forward to meeting all of you in person in a not very far future. So thank you once again, colleagues, for joining us today, and we're really looking forward to engaging and enriching this training journey together. Thank you. Over to you, Rebecca.
Thank you very much, Kitsiwe, for those opening words and the welcome, and especially the nice metaphor with the tail, and really bringing the topic and the importance of the of both of these topics, the NDCs and the BTRs, clearly to the forefront. So, Freya, could I kindly ask you to share the slides? So we have with us today a lot of different countries, and you can see here an overview of which countries you can expect at the maybe going back one slide. Perfect. Thank you so much, Sheila. Which countries you can expect to see at the training. So really looking forward to that. And we would love to take a group photo of us, everyone in the beginning. So for that, I kindly ask that you please turn on your cameras. And we will have to stop sharing the screen again for a moment there. So everyone, if you could please turn on your cameras as we will be taking a group photo, and you also have the opportunity to see the other experts you will be meeting at the workshop. Great to see so many of you turning on the cameras. Wonderful to see your smiles. Okay. Thank you so much. Gonna wait another moment there. Okay. Okay, get ready with your best smile in 3, 2, 1. Wonderful. And taking another one in a second. One moment. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hey, great. Thank you everyone for turning on your camera. It's great to see so many of you here today, and wonderful to take this picture. And continuing, we will be going through some general housekeeping for today's session. Thank you very much for the slides, Sheila. So
Hi,
we would like.
hi, Rebecca. Sorry, just before we move on, I think Fatu from AUC also has some opening remarks to make as well.
Yes,
Sorry.
thank you so much for that, Freya. No problem at all. Sorry for my mistake there on that side. Thank you very much. So yes, let's hand over to Fatu from the African Union Commission for some opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Rebecca and colleagues. I'll be very short. I think Ketiwe mentioned most of the point, but what I would like to say, first of all, is to really appreciate the collaboration that we started last year with CBIT on the training for the African countries to support them actually complying with their commitment, but also to allow them to better understand these processes. So allow me also to thank all the partners here present, PACPA, UNFCCC, CGE, GIZ, and all who are making this training possible. We want to reiterate our commitment to actually support our member state to really understand the linkages between the BRT and the NDC. As Ketiwe said, they are not far from each other. Actually, they are complementing each other. And one point which is very important is the accountability and also the learning among the countries. Countries are at different level. So this platform, this training with the expert that you have will be very hands-on for the country, but also to share the experiences among themselves. I'd like to thank the government of Seychelles as well to host us for the training. We believe that that's the continuation of a good journey that we started. And we look forward to actually organize the training for the other regions together. So thank you again, and I wish us a good deliberation. Unfortunately, Ketiwe and colleagues, I will have to log off. I'm in another meeting, so just wanted to make these few remarks and thanks everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatu, for finding the time to join us and those important remarks. And we look forward to the training today. And yes, as said, accountability, very important for this process. Then we come to some general housekeeping rules for today's session for everyone to please remember that while someone is presenting and speaking, to please keep your microphone off. However, if you want to already ask any questions or provide any comments, you can use the chat function during the presentations. But we will also have a space for you to be able to come in and ask your questions and get answers to these or provide comments after each presentation. So you have both options, either using the chat function or waiting for the dedicated session afterwards. If you want to talk, it would be great that you then raise your hand and use the function, and I will then call upon you and you can then turn on your microphone. And furthermore, as we have some known faces and some new faces here, it will be great when you speak if you could please say your name, the country you're representing, and the organization you work for. Thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to take us through today's agenda real quickly, what we have planned for today. We just had our opening remarks and our group photo. And now we will have a short presentation by Sheila, our Anglophone African Network Coordinator from CBIT GSP. And she will look more specifically at the content of the workshop and provide you an overview what the main sessions of the workshops entail, the different stages, as well as some background for the training. Thereafter, we have Marlon joining us from the Transparency Division from the UNFCCC, who will provide an overview on the opportunities of using linkages between the NDCs and BTRs. And thereafter, we will have a short Q&A and discussion on this. Once again, please feel free to collect your questions, and we look forward for your interactiveness there. We will then have a little Mentimeter quiz to look at what your expectations for the workshops are, and also to see how much knowledge already is there, to be able to provide you with the best possible training. Then after Freya will give us a short introduction and guidance for the preparation of the in-person workshop. So here it will be very important that you will get information on what the next steps are and how you can come prepared to the exercise. So deep diving into the content a little bit. Thereafter, again, we have some time for questions and answers and discussions. And last but not least, we would like to take you through a short survey and have some closing remarks. With that, I would like to introduce you a bit to the organizing team who is behind this workshop. If you could switch to the next slide, please. So I'm sure you've all been in contact with Sheila as well as Kitsiwe from the CBIT GSP program, but we also have Freya with us here today who have been wonderfully organizing this workshop. We have Malan from the UNFCCC. We have Caroline and Fatu from the African Union Commission. We have Salif as a facilitator who will be on the ground to moderate the workshop, and myself from the PATBA. So if you do have any questions to the organizing team, please do feel free to reach out to us with your questions. With that, I come to the next point, and I hand over to Sheila to take us through an introduction to the workshop. Thank you very much, and over to Sheila.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rebecca, for the good introduction to the team. So I would like to take us through the introduction to the training workshop, just to provide quick background, considering that we have also received some highlights from the opening and introductory remarks. As you may recall, in the year 2024, it was really critical, especially the timing of around December, where implementation of ETF as parties were required to submit their first BTR by 31st December, and this will be done after 2 years. So it was really a critical year for us. As you can remember, all of us were doing something towards that date, although some countries were not able to meet that deadline, but we managed to have 9 countries to date from Anglophone Africa that have managed to submit their first BTR, demonstrating significant progress in delivering timely, transparent, and quality information. And other countries are still working very hard, and I know by June we shall have more updates with more countries having submitted the first BTR. But we also take note that there are some gaps and challenges that remain, that require regional cooperation, that require knowledge, that require sharing of experiences and lessons that have been learned through the process of developing the first BTR. And also, very importantly, mutual support, especially in relation to linking and updating the cycle of NDC 3.0, which also fell in the year of the first BTR. The NDC that we had, they were ending last year. So there's also an opportunity, but also there's need for support to learn how all these processes can be linked to each other. Then when it also comes to specifically background to this training, we have been having several trainings with countries, but most importantly, as CBIT Global Support Program with partners, we have adopted a strategic approach where countries have to adopt a holistic approach, identifying key linkages and opportunities between these processes, and of course, fostering collaboration between the different teams, both within countries and, as you can see, among the different partners, where we ensure that we don't duplicate effort and resources, but we try to harness what we have to effectively deliver and also enhance learning and reporting. Then in addition, the conclusions from the training will help define improvement plans, raising the quality of information to be presented in the second BTR, but most importantly, to inform the upcoming trainings, both hosted and also supported by our partners in the upcoming month. And then in response to this context, of course, CBIT with partners like PATPA, African Union Commission, Commonwealth, UNFCCC, and the government of Seychelles invited countries from Anglophone Africa to this network training to support for countries to participate in this regional training 2025. This is one of our face-to-face workshops, and we hope that it will achieve the expected and intended outputs. So the main objective for this training workshop is to support practitioners and country experts from Anglophone Africa, especially those experts working on climate transparency in BTR planning and development of processes through analyzing and identifying of the linkages and opportunities between NDCs and BTR. Specifically, we intend to introduce NDC and ETF and BTR processes under the Paris Agreement and elaborate on application of Decision 4 of the parties, and then also elaborate on the ICTU and accounting approaches. And then we also intend to provide national teams with relevant information and international experiences that link the NDC and BTR processes. And then we will dive deep into how parties can elaborate with concrete examples on demonstrating mitigation assessment methodologies and consideration for prioritizing climate actions, specifically for NDC 3.0. And then we hope that during the training, there will be exchange of experiences, lessons learned corresponding to the application of methodological approaches, projection tools, and data needs for reporting under the ETF provisions. And then we hope that then countries will also be able to, within their teams, to provide relevant information, and also from our side, team of experts, they will also be in position to guide on reporting on financial technology, development transfer, and capacity building support needed and received. So we hope to highlight on that, and also on other articles of the Paris Agreement, like Article 6. So we hope to touch some of those elements that are critical for our reporting, but also on updating NDC 3.0. So this training has been organized in 3 stages. One of the first stages is the introductory webinar, which we are hosting today. And then the second stage is face-to-face event, which will be hosted in Mahe, Seychelles, from the 6th to 9th of May, 2025. And we hope to have follow-up face-to-face events, both hosted by our partners and also some of the face-to-face where we shall have countries demand for some of the support by us, but also by our partners. We hope to all of us together to participate in that. And then going now to the workshop, from 6th to 9th, day 1 will mainly be focusing on BTR submission status and development. We shall also touch part of NDC and BTR linkages on day 1, and then NDC processes, and then the ICTU table, the information clarity, transparency table. And then also that part will also be continuing to day 2, where we shall have NDC targets and indicators elaborated more with examples. And then also we shall look closely into table 5, mitigation measures. and then also look at NDC projections and part of mitigation assessment guiding that process and the linkage with NDC and BTR development. And then that will be part of day 1 and day 2. And then day 3 will usher us into elements of support needed and support received, and then also institutional arrangements, and then we shall deep into understanding of transparency issues. We shall have open space clinics with very well facilitated to ensure that we get some of the elements that can remove the bottlenecks by learning from each other, country experiences, lessons learned, and some of the good practices that have been done by some of the countries. And then we shall go to day 4, where we shall be picking elements on ETF, talking about elements on ETF reporting tools, and then NDC development process, but specifically linking it with Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Just to still go into day 1, this session will be covering a BTR submission process, an overview and analysis of BTR submission that have been received. Most of these sessions, just to take note, they will really be more sharing experiences, practical exercises, and also listening to countries on how they have been able to remove some of the bottlenecks. And session 2 will cover linkages between NDC and BTR processes. And then, of course, countries will be given an opportunity to understand their NDC better by looking into their ICTU tables within their NDC. And then this will help us now to have our day 2 where we're looking into deeper sessions of looking at smart targets and indicators for NDC. Countries will take part on some of the exercises where they can be able to improve their skills on identifying the indicator targets. And we shall also have panel discussions, hearing from countries and learning from them on how they did that. And then session 4 will cover evaluating of and prioritizing of policies, actions and measures to reduce GHG emissions. Session 5 will cover methodology approaches for projections of emissions and removals. And then, sorry. Sorry about that. Session 6 will cover information on FTC support needed and received and institutional arrangements. And then session 7 will be open space transparency clinic, like I had mentioned. Day 4 will have session 8, which will cover reporting tools for tracking NDC progress, as well as formulation of NDC with details on how it links with Article 6. And this will conclude our 4 days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheila. And I'm directly handing over to Marlan Pillay from the UNFCCC to give us a short input on the opportunities for linking these two processes. Over to you, Marlan.
Okay, good morning, everyone. And really glad to be here and be part of this event that is happening. Firstly, thank you to all the partners, the CIBIT, GSP, PATPA, the African Union Commission, the Commonwealth, and the government of Seychelles for making it possible for us to participate in this. And on behalf of the Secretariat and the CGE, we're very much looking forward to helping and supporting the countries in this workshop. So as first, then thank you to Sheila and to Kitsiwe for setting the scene as well. And something that Kitsiwe mentioned was peer exchange and mutual cooperation. And we found that from the experiences that has been shared so far from countries that have prepared their BTR, that the peer exchange and the mutual cooperation, both North, South, and South, South, was very important for them to progress and prepare that BTR. One of the core principles we have when it comes to the enhanced transparency framework is leaving no one behind. And so we are really enthusiastic to work with these countries in the region to bring them up to speed on the latest on NDCs and BTRs. So firstly, I think now let me just share my presentation, or you have it on screen. Okay. So you will see in this diagram, this donut, there is 3 processes from the Paris Agreement: NDCs, ETF, and GST. So when it comes to NDCs, there is 2 main processes: one, preparing it and communicating it, and then implementing it. And when we have a look at the enhanced transparency framework, there is how it links is that there's an accounting and tracking of the progress of those NDCs, and then reporting it in the biennial transparency reports. And this report then undergoes a technical expert review and FMCP. Now, I will explain more about those processes in the coming slides. Then the next process we have is the global stocktake. So the inputs from your NDCs and the ETF are joined with other inputs, and it goes to the process we call the global stocktake, where there is a consideration of the progress that is made by all countries towards achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement. And basically that process then funnels all the technical inputs and combines it with the political considerations to come out with some outcomes as reflected in COP28, where the first GST was concluded. So next slide, please. And as you see, this slide is from 2015, where the countries agreed to the Paris Agreement. And one of the main articles is Article 4 under the Paris Agreement that talks about NDCs. And this is the shall requirement. Now, what is important to highlight here is that it is the prerogative of the countries to decide for themselves their NDC. It's a country-driven process. They need to decide what targets they set and how they will then go about achieving those targets. Next slide, please. Now, when we come to this slide, you see there's a spiral. And usually what we do is we use the spiral to signify this ratcheting up process. So what this means is that as each NDC is prepared, the ambition needs to increase. So with subsequent NDCs. So there should be a consistent progression over time where a country looks at what climate action to take, they achieve that, and then they move on to even more ambitious climate action. So this is important to understand. And then we have a 5-year cycle over the for NDCs. And of course, the NDC, this next cycle is due this year. So you will also see the feedback mechanisms about NDCs I mentioned earlier. Connected to it is the global stocktake and the enhanced transparency framework. Next slide, please. Okay, so in this slide, what I wanted to highlight was we have these Paris Agreement goals. And one of the goals on mitigation is reducing the emissions so that we keep the temperature increase below 2 and if possible 1.5. And then also to continue to build resilience, climate resilience, and take adaptation actions. And of course, none of this was possible without. Sorry, should I continue?
Yes, you can continue, Mahe.
Okay. All right. So then there's finance flows to make this finance flows consistent with the path to low GHG emissions and a climate resilient development pathway. So you see here, you in your NDCs, you decide what national climate change actions you will take, and then you need all these mitigation, adaptation, and you need the means of implementation, the finance, the capacity building, the technology transfer to implement that NDC. And then you monitor that and you report on it in the biennial transparency report, which then goes to the global stocktake for consideration. Next slide, please. Okay, a little bit more about the last global stocktake that happened. And over here, you can see that some decisions were made by parties. Now, in terms of mitigation, you can see that parties agreed that there's an urgent need for very deep cuts in GHG emissions, and that NDCs should, have economy-wide targets. And then there's a need to transition away from the fossil fuels and to invest more in renewable energies and energy efficiency. And of course, to take some measures to preserve the coastal ecosystems and restore the oceans, and then move towards more sustainable consumption and production patterns. Now, in terms of adaptation, you will see that in our negotiations, we have this continuing discussions on the global goal on adaptation, and that is really for where parties are really discussing all the elements and how to move forward on this topic of adaptation into the future. And you will see that they are also encouraging countries to enhance the national adaptation plans and adaptation communications that's been submitted to provide more details in those documents so that the next global stocktake, it can be clearer what adaptation actions should be taken. Now, of course, you will also see in our negotiations, there's a lot of discussions about this goal, climate finance goal, and that's quite important as well. And we have the Technology Executive Committee providing some guidance on technology implementation plans and programs. And then there is a recognition that the capacity building support needs to be further enhanced. Now, besides this, there is also some focus now on loss and damage. You'd have seen in our negotiations that the fund has been set up and there's a committee been set up. So progress is being made on averting, minimizing loss and damage. And then there is also lots of discussion on just transition measures and how certain sectors can make that transition in a way that minimizes the impact on the livelihoods of people working in those sectors. Now, of course, none of this is possible without international cooperation. So that global stocktake has called for more cooperation amongst countries to realize these aims. And then you have this cross-cutting aspects that go throughout mitigation, adaptation, means of implementation. These are sort of like core principles. One is about making sure that you use as a basis the best available science that you can. And another is the linkage with sustainable development, so that you could preserve resources for future generations. And then the issue about equity, about we have this principle that comes from the convention and emphasized in the Paris Agreement about common but differentiated responsibilities, where certain countries need to take the lead in certain areas and to ensure that there is a equitable resources available for developing countries to take climate action. And then there is this sense of urgency, because we are at a stage where we really need to advance in terms of climate action. And so this global stocktake was emphasizing that sense of urgency. Okay. Next slide, please. Of course, one more thing about the GST was about consideration of gender, especially empowerment of women in all aspects of climate change, so that they are not just impacted by climate change, but part of the decision-making processes. And that's quite an important area as well. Now, when it comes to the architecture of the ETF, we have three processes. The first process is about preparing the biennial transparency report, and it has a few chapters in there. And some of those chapters request that all parties shall provide information. And then there are some chapters where it's a should requirement for developing countries, and for adaptation, it's a should requirement. So you should provide it if you have that information available. Okay, if you could just let the animation play out on the slide. Yes, thank you. So the second process, once you have the BTR, is the technical expert review process. And in this process, the BTR gets reviewed by a group of technical experts. And the party is then involved in many aspects of that work. There's a lot of communication that happens back and forth. And the technical expert review process has a look at certain elements of the BTR, not all the elements. Now, once the technical expert review is concluded, we have what is called a technical expert review report. And that report, together with the BTR, then goes to this process called the facilitative multilateral consideration of progress, where you have an online Q&A session and then an in-session presentation and a Q&A. And that applies to all parties participating in the process. Next slide, please. Now, if you look closely at the chapter of NDCs in the Enhanced Transparency Framework Modalities, Procedures, Guidelines, you see it starts with first national circumstances and institutional arrangements. Now, this element under this chapter is very important because it sets the context of your NDC. It tells the reader how your NDC should be understood in terms of your national circumstances, in terms of your institutional arrangements that you have in place to prepare and implement your NDC. Now, you may have some challenges in these areas, and that is also important to highlight so that when a technical expert reviewer looks at what you've written, then they can understand the context within which you prepared the information on your NDC. The second is the description of your NDC, including any updates that you've had. And then the next chapter is about all the information that is necessary to track the progress and or achievement of your NDC. And that is where you provide details about what indicators you've used and then how you've gone about to show that you've achieved or have made progress to achieve those targets that you've set in your NDC. It could be sectoral targets or overall target, and you're providing information. Then there are other elements as well in there where you are providing some mitigation projections and some projections on your greenhouse gas emissions and your mitigation policies and measures that you have in place. Sometimes there's co-benefits as well with adaptation, and you're providing information on that, and a summary of your greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide, please. Now, when you look at the technical expert review process, what is reviewed? What is reviewed is your GHG inventory, your NDC, and the support provided to developing countries. And when it comes specific to your NDC, what is not reviewed is how you went about choosing those indicators to monitor the progress, whether your domestic actions was adequate or not, and whether the support that's been provided was adequate or not. Now, there is some flexibility provisions that has been built into the ETF modalities, procedures, and guidelines. Not much for the NDC chapter, but some countries have used those flexibility provisions in the light of their capacities to say that they are not able to report on these at this time, either because they are lacking some of the primary data, or they don't have the process to collect the data or to analyze the data. Okay, and of course, then there are some special circumstances for LDCs and SIDS, and they can choose to participate also in a centralized review as a group. Now, when it comes to the FMCP, so once the technical expert review is prepared, then you have these two steps, a Q&A phase where other parties can ask questions through an online platform, and then the party needs to respond to those questions about their BTR submission. And then at the sidelines of the SB sessions, then we usually have this FMCP event where a party then presents their BTR, and then other parties have the opportunity to then ask questions about that as well. Okay, next slide, please. Now, just to highlight some areas where the consultative group of experts have noticed some of the challenges that developing countries are facing. So you may relate to these challenges. So every year, the CGE publishes this capacity building needs assessment report. And they've highlighted, for example, that reporting on mitigation actions, there is some limitations in the technical capacity to use some of the methodologies and tools to conduct the mitigation assessment. Then there is also in GHG inventories, the lack of quality data to prepare the inventory, and in adaptation, the challenges in understanding the diverse impacts of climate change across sectors. So you can see, although this capacity building needs assessment comes out from the national communications, biannual update reports, and the BTRs of that countries have submitted, that it also, many of this also applies or is linked to your NDC and how the challenges you have in preparing that NDC. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, so another area is about support needed and received. And you've seen Sheila share the agenda. So we are going to deep dive into support needed and received as well. And many challenges countries face in collecting this data. There are other ministries involved to collect data, plus some of the climate action and the financing of this climate action occurs at various levels. So nationally, at local government level, from the private sector, etc., etc. So it's a difficult task to provide all get all this information about the support that's been received, and then to assess the situation as well about what support is needed. And you can see also there's some emerging needs under the ETF. One is about national reporting systems, and many countries are facing this dilemma where the ETF MPGs is asking for information, and this information, really the ideal way is to have these national reporting systems and databases that can store and manage this data, and then it can be used to generate the reports that's needed. And then, of course, there is this ongoing capacity building that's needed so that countries can use the ETF reporting tools, the IPCC checklists, and forms, so to generate the reports that they need for submitting the BTR, and that we will also cover during this workshop. Okay, so with that, I'd like to say thank you, and looking forward to seeing all of you in the Seychelles in quite a short time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Marlon, for that very insightful presentation on looking at the interlinkages between the ETF, the NDCs, and the GST, and especially going there into depth of the different processes and as well as the gaps and the capacity needs. Could I ask for the next slide, please? Thank you so much. So participants, now it's your time, and we would like to do a short Mentimeter quiz with you. For those of you who are not familiar with the tool, you have two possibilities to participate. This is a questionnaire with some questions. Either you can go to www.menti.com and enter the code, or you can scan the QR code that was just shown. So I would kindly ask everyone to go to the Menti, and I will post the Menti code here. And please join so that we can do a Mentimeter quiz with you. Handing over to Sheila with that.
So thank you so much, Rebecca. I hope you can all see my presentation.
Yes, we can see it, Sheila.
Yeah, so I will straight go to the instructions for the Menti. Kindly log on to your www.menti.com, and the code is 73739927. I will try to, yes, I think this is better. So kindly let us know if you have been able to get the code. We just have a few questions. Actually, it's not a quiz. I would want to understand your expectations for the training. And I can see we don't have participants who have joined, so I will still go back to the instructions slide where I can request that you log on to your www.menti.com and you use the code 73739927, or you can actually scan the QR code on your screen. You can scan using your phone and take this quiz using your mobile device. I have not seen anyone joining, and that's why we still have 0 responses. Maybe let me wait for a few minutes. Let us know if you have any challenges, if you need any support to join the Menti. I have not seen anyone join the Menti. Kindly join www.menti.com. Enter the code 7373 and 9927. Okay, so maybe we can go for the first question. Yes, I can see. At what stage are you in the process of developing of NDC 3.0? I can see some countries are at the stage of sectoral engagements across the different groups. Initial stage roadmap for 3.0 development. Specifically, Mauritius says the preparation started in November 2024 and it is expected to be submitted in September 2025. Development of the work plan and costing. Another response is saying that they are in the initial stage. We don't know what initial stage means. We are done. They have done the first inception meeting or kickoff meeting. Initial stage needs more clarification. we are only starting. To this end, a team has been developed and assembled, and they are in planning phase. So another country is in the planning phase. We appreciate the different stages of these processes because countries are organized differently, but also the resources are received at different times. So it's expected that countries at different stages, but learning from what countries are doing and what stages other countries are at is very good for us to know how to engage during the meeting, during the training. Someone is saying the sectoral consultations with stakeholders on the input have started. Assessment of current NDC planning processes is in progress. Inception stage supported mobilization and stakeholder engagement. And then Namibia is just starting at the planning stage, inception phase. As I can see from this, most countries are in the inception stage, and I think there's still a lot of experience to be shared. So take note of all those experiences to share with colleagues so that some countries shouldn't stay in the same stage for long if you have already identified how you can approach or how you can overcome some of those challenges. Our next question is about yeah, we have many people who have been able to join. We appreciate that. Our next question is about how has your country submitted their first BTR? Would want to hear from you if your country has submitted your first BTR. I can see all the 12 have answered, 15. Thank you so much for joining the quiz. You can always join, even if you have started. The code is 73739927. Okay, we have, according to the representation in the room, we have 8 that have submitted. So there is a lot to learn from each of the groups. Since we are all equal, I hope we shall have the opportunity to equally share some of those experiences so that we can fast track the process for submitting. So our next question is about if you have submitted your first BTR, have you started your second BTR? I can see someone is saying they have not yet submitted, another one is saying they have submitted, but I can see now many of you are saying that you have not yet started on the process for your second BTR. But as you can see, 2 years is not a very long process, very long period. So it would be nice to have a plan on how you can start on your second BTR so that you can meet the timelines and also, of course, do better. Let me wait for a few more. So we have only almost, I assume that these yes are from maybe 2 countries, but if we have yes from 1 country, it is also fine. I can see so only 2 have started planning for BTR2. So it is better to make the process of developing these biannual transparency reports as a continuous process so that you can meet the element of timely reporting. Thank you for that. Our next question is about what challenges are you facing in preparing NDC 3.0? What challenges are you facing in preparing NDC 3.0? Yes, we appreciate most of you are at the inception phase. Some of the responses we are getting is that some countries have challenges in resources, finance, of course, it's the same. And then the time, I don't know what you mean by time. You can elaborate more maybe. And then technical know-how. There's an opportunity under CBIT Global Support Program. If you have any requests for support, we can always support. But we have partners here where you can also send in your request, and then we see how we can support. Limited human resource. And then I see financial resources, GHG projections. Those are all potential areas of support on our side. Capacity. We are getting more of capacity challenges, and then bankability, financial challenges, securing financial support. Yeah, I think during the training we shall have a discussion on how other countries have overcome and how they went through it. So we shall be able to have some strategies on how we can overcome some of these challenges. Yes, I can see most of them are about capacity, limited expertise, financial, limited human resource. So we shall have very beautiful discussion around some of those areas. Yeah, data, limited data for evidence. Yes, we shall come up with clear strategies on how we can overcome some of those challenges. Thank you so much for those responses. Our next question is, what challenges did you face or are you facing in preparing your first BTR? Would want to hear from you. Data gaps. Someone is saying data gaps. Yes, data. Finances. Maybe you could elaborate finances for what, then we can understand the challenge better. Yes, inconsistent personnel. You mean human resource turnover, and then lack of technical experts, availability of data. We shall discuss and see what strategies can we do for data gaps, and then technical capacity, and then we have financial gaps, and then low capacity. We shall be documenting all these challenges that you are highlighting here, and then during the training, we shall be able to come up with some strategies on how we can overcome some of these challenges. I can see use of IPCC software, coordination of stakeholders. We have very beautiful experiences on how some countries have been able to develop some of the stakeholder engagement strategies. So we shall learn from other countries. Thank you for these very good insights on what challenges you are facing. And I think we can have a good discussion on how we can come up with doable strategies to overcome. Yeah, I can see. Yeah. So our next question, what are your expectations in the workshop? This is our last question. What are your expectations considering the main objectives of the workshop? What would you expect? We would want to understand your expectations. Clarity on the ETF process. Yes, you will get clarity on the ETF process. Do we have only one expectation? I know we have a lot. Kindly tell us your expectations. The link of NDC with BTR, more practical lessons, understanding of the ETF processes, sequencing of activities. I think this one has to do with planning and how we can organize our MRV frameworks for ETF. That is what I would call. We shall have those discussions, and then someone is saying that they will be understanding in detail when they get there. Then harmonizing NDC and BTR. Someone is saying, I think they wanted to say the difference between maybe the linkage. Yeah. I can see more practical lessons, capacity building, challenges in the linkage. Yeah, thank you so much for bringing all this. Someone is still talking about learning from other countries. We hope to harness the examples and experience from other countries. Please do not miss out on some of those opportunities so that we can learn some of those good practices and that will help to fast track our in-country processes. So thank you so much for joining this questions for expectations, and we shall be documenting this, and we hope that by the time we finish on 9th, we have been able to meet some of the expectations. I will hand over back to Rebecca on the program.
Thank you very much, Sheila, for that. And thank you to everyone for participating. It was really great to see and get an impression of where you stand and what you will be expecting for the workshops and how we can assist you with that. Now we come to the question and answer part. So if you have any questions on the agenda of the training or any of the inputs that we had, you can now raise your hand virtually, and when you speak, please do say your name, the country you're representing, the organization you're representing, and whom the question is addressed to. So please, if you have any question, feel free to raise your virtual hand. We did have one question in the chat in regard to a recording. So yes, this meeting is recorded, and we will make the recording available as well as the presentations for you to have a look at after. Are there any questions to any of the presenters, to the organizing team in regards to the content, anything that was said, anything you would like to share? Yes, Marlon, please come on in.
Yeah, so I think, you know, once in a workshop, we were asked this question about producing a perfect BTR and a perfect NDC. And our response is always that we are not expecting any countries to produce any perfect document. But what we would like to see is that countries prepare their BTR in a way that explains the challenges, the progress and the challenges that they have. And for the NDC as well, when they are reporting, when they are preparing the NDC, implementing the NDC and reporting on the progress, to show what sort of challenges that they've had. And because these are then important inputs into the process, so that when, for example, there is the next global stock take, those inputs from the countries can be taken into consideration. But also during the negotiations, you know, there are many agenda items talking about NDCs, etc. So when you report on these things in your updated NDC, in your BTR, then that can be taken into account in the process. Thank you.
Thanks, Marlon, for that. So yes, very important. We're not perfectionists, but just trying your best is much appreciated. And next up, we have one person with a hand up. So I hand over to Aurelius to please ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are you able to get me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Oh yeah, thank you. Mine is on the the NDC raising of the ambition. This is after the presentation that was given by Malan. Just a bit of some clarity, if you can provide a bit of some clarity on the progressive increase of the ambition. Is it because I remember we had at some point some challenge that was in Zambia then. We had some challenge with the aspects of raising ambition. And in this case, is it just in the number or it can be in other areas? Which other aspects can ambition be raised besides raising the number?
Thanks for your question, Aurelius. Are you from Zambia?
I'm from Zambia initially, but I work with the Commonwealth based in Seychelles at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So Malan, I think that question is addressed to you on ambition raising in NDCs and which aspects to consider.
Okay, thank you. I think this is a very good question and an important question. So you will see there's a number of processes that's involved with the NDC. One of it is the ICTU process, so that you go through your NDC and you're able to explain how your NDC should be understood. And then the second process, of course, is in your BTRs, where you are describing how you went about monitoring the progress of that NDC and achieving that progress. Now, you must remember that these are really long-term processes that's in place in the Paris Agreement, and it signifies that there should be some progression over time. And now, in the practical reality of the situation, so many countries, they prepared their first first NDC, and they had some targets in there. And then when they prepared the second second NDC, then they realized that, oh no, we were quite not as understanding of the process as we are now. And so we made certain revisions, etc. And then I think NDC 3.0, that's also going to be the experience of many of the countries, where they are seeing, how difficult it is for them to implement some of the targets that they've set. What's important is to describe that, and to describe not only progress in terms of numbers, but progress in terms of putting that system in place so that you have the institutional arrangements, you've developed the partnerships with the stakeholders involved in NDC preparation and NDC implementation, and you've got more coordination across line ministries, for example, to work on delivering on the NDCs, or you've set up committees, working groups that are really deep diving into implementation of the NDC or tracking the progress of it. So a number of those areas, you say we have improved in all these things, so that then there's more confidence in your NDC that way when you report on those things as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Marlon, for the answer. And looking into the room, are there any more questions? Any other comments? Now's your opportunity to raise your hand. If not, we will come to the second part, and we will have another opportunity at the end to ask any questions you may have. And with that, I hand over to Freya Milford to give us an insight on how you can prepare and what's going to be expecting you exactly at the training. Thank you, and over to you, Freya.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rebecca, and thank you, Marlon and Sheila, for your presentations as well. So basically, in just this last part of the the webinar this morning. As Rebecca said, I'm going to be kind of talking you through some of the ways in which you can prepare for the in-person training, like kind of what materials you should be looking at, and just kind of give you an overview and a bit of an insight into some of the practical exercises that we'll be undertaking as a part of this training. So you just move on to the next slide, Sheila. Thank you. So as Sheila went through earlier, she kind of provided the overview of each of the days of the training, and kind of within that, it detailed how there were certain presentations within the sessions, but also some experience sharing and discussions, and also exercises. So the key parts of this training, and the key ways in which this training is going to be delivered, is through the presentations that will be conducted by the partner representatives, so by CBIT GSB, by AUC, CGE members, by PAPA. And we'll also be having direct experience sharing and some panel discussions by countries to provide some of that country perspective, which I think is so essential and important in the kind of peer-to-peer learning that we really hope takes place as a part of this training. We'll also be having lots of time for question and answers and kind of group discussions. We'll also be having some Menti quizzes and surveys throughout the meeting. And then obviously, as we kind of discussed in a bit more detail, which I'll discuss in a bit more detail now, we'll also be doing a number of hands-on exercises based on kind of pre-prepared case studies or kind of country-specific information. And on day 3, we'll also be holding in the afternoon session a sort of open space clinic, which I'll go into in the later slides. So if you just move on, please, Sheila. So just to kind of go into a bit of the information on the practical examples and the case studies. So we're going to be, for 4 of the sessions that are going to be presented, we'll be providing some examples that the participants will be kind of conducting exercises related to. So this is kind of going to be using, some of these examples may actually use a specific country example, and this could be from the Anglophone Africa region, but it also could be from one of the broader transparency network regions as well. Or we'll also kind of be providing some case studies which are based on real data, but not a specific country. So it'll kind of be a combination of a few different items. So if you just move on to the next slide. So the 4 main examples that we're going to be going through, these exercises that you'll kind of conduct group work on, there's going to be one on using the ICTU principles for CTF Table 3 for the NDC tracking chapter. We'll also be then doing a session, in session 3, we'll also be doing an exercise on SMART targets and indicators for the NDC. We'll be doing an exercise which is an analysis of different emission projections, and then finally we'll be doing a practical example which everyone will do themselves on using the ETF reporting tools. So I'm just going to go into a bit of them a little bit in more detail, obviously not providing the actual case study just yet. We want to leave that to the actual training. But so for that first exercise, which is going to be the ICTU tables, we're going to be splitting the participants up based just in different groups, so on different tables. And with this case study that's going to be presented, we want you all to kind of collaboratively as these tables to kind of go through the example and assess the content of a case study's CTF Table 3 and assess it against the ICTU principles. So you'll be asked kind of a number of different questions in relating to the content of the case study in the table. And of course, these case studies will be sent to you all and will be available on the Google Drive, which we'll be setting up for this training. So it is important that you all make sure to bring your own personal laptops, your work laptops, so that you can access these materials as a group. And then you'll kind of, you'll work through the example, and then we'll kind of have a group-wide discussion across the tables where each table will kind of present their own findings and their own opinions relating to it, which will hopefully stimulate a larger discussion, and will also enable participants to reflect on the content of their own CTF3 tables. Just next slide, please. So for the SMART indicators and targets exercise, again, the participants will be separated into groups based on the different tables that you'll be sat in. And similar to the previous exercise, you'll be assessing some indicators that a country has set out under their for their NDC, and again you're going to be assessing these indicators against the different kind of principles of SMART indicators. So there'll be a number of set of questions, and yeah, we really want to hear the thoughts and processes and opinions of the different groups on how they think the indicators set out and the information relating to these indicators set out, whether it adheres to the SMART principles. And in the case that you think that it doesn't, what we want to see is how this case study country can improve on the information that they present or the information that they include within this indicator, and how they can align it better to be so-called SMART indicator. Next slide, please. The third exercise will be an analysis of different emission projections. So again, as groups on a table, each table will be asked to review information from a case study country, and to discuss the different trends in the emission projections. So as a part of this one, and it's a slightly longer exercise, and of course, throughout all these exercises as well, the team and the different partners will obviously be circulating and helping to stimulate conversations and discussions. But for this one, the groups will review kind of initial information on greenhouse gas assumptions, the NDC, and growth and assumption drivers. And then kind of the exercise will be split into 3 main parts, where we want the participants and groups to identify or prioritize, the key sectors and define mitigation measures based on this information. And then also identify the measures that will be quite highly efficient in leading to those kind of emission reductions. And then also based on a carbon neutral commitment by the country, which in the case study will be present. We want you to discuss then how the emissions should change in order to meet that the carbon neutral commitment. So we just move on to the last bit for the exercises. And then finally, on the last day, as Sheila kind of walked through, on this day, we'll kind of be doing a session relating to the ETF reporting tools. So we'll be doing first a live demonstration of the tools themselves, and also ensuring that all the participants are guided in setting up the relevant accounts in order to utilize the UNFCCC reporting tools and the ETF reporting tools. And then each of the participants will then utilize this ETF reporting tool for an NDC tracking section. So that'll be done individually, but again, you'll all be sat on a dedicated table, so you can of course discuss this in groups. And I think a key part of obviously all these exercises that are taking place is that there's going to be dedicated time obviously for us to introduce the detail of the different exercises. All the materials will be provided to you online in the folders for the training, so you'll have access to these to each individually have these on your own devices. And then there's also going to be time for you to conduct the exercises in the tables and in the groups, where you'll be having discussions and conversations. And then there will also be then the time to kind of discuss more openly as larger groups, and to ask any questions, and also to reflect then on how you can the findings of the exercises and how that can be used to how you can input that into your own BTRs or NDCs at whatever stage that you currently are. Just move on to the next slide. Okay, so on day 3, as we've said, we're going to be having a session that covers the whole afternoon, which is kind of going to be an open space clinic for further information on different transparency issues. So this session, we really want to give participants a space within this training to gain further information and insights relating to these specific transparency topics, as well as provide a bit of a platform to ask any other related questions related to these key thematic areas. from the different partners and the different experts who will be attending. And it's also a great place, a great session for countries themselves to interact and ask other countries maybe that have shared experiences in other sessions in the event for further details. So the format of this clinic, which is going to be open space, is going to be conducted across different tables. So different tables are going to have a specific key thematic area relating transparency kind of dedicated to each of these tables. And based on information that we gather, which I'm going to explain on the next slides, based on information that we gather from all of you, we'll kind of have a bit of an idea of the key areas or key themes that countries and participants want further information on. And I will go through that in a second. And so for the different partner organizations who are involved and the experts will each be kind of assigned to different topics and so these different tables. And there'll be 4 sessions within this afternoon, each half an hour long, where based on what a country wants to get further information and insight on, they can spend half an hour at these dedicated tables getting that information and then move on to another table. After half an hour again, move on to another table. After half an hour again, move on to another table. So it really allows kind of within the wider context of the training, some sessions to get really maybe some more granular details and to ask questions and to just, you know, spend that bit of more like dedicated one-on-one time in the areas that you want to most get further information on. So I can just now take you through how we'll be gathering information for this. So following this session, which of course we're going to be sharing the live recording of this as well as the presentations themselves. We'll be sharing this information template to the participants. And so the idea with this is that for the key kind of thematic areas of transparency in the BTR and NDC, which are obviously listed in the first column, we want each country, so we only want one of these documents from each country, not from each individual participant, but for each country to kind of identify 1 or 2 areas related to these key themes that they maybe want more information on, or they want to ask specific questions into certain areas, if it's certain aspects of these transparency related issues that they're struggling with. You know, we want you to detail this within this table. And also you can rate how much of a priority this is for you in terms of getting information on, just so that we are able to prioritize ourselves the key things that we want to discuss in these on the tables and within these sessions. And of course, you don't have to fill in 2 for every single thematic area that is listed. You can, you know, you can focus just more keenly on, you know, 3 or 4 of them. But yeah, so the idea here is for each country to submit 1 of these forms. And if you just move on to the next slide, Sheila. And we'll also have a section at the end of this form where countries can also input any questions that they have, just whether it's related to the themes that are detailed in the previous table, but just more generally questions that we can collect and have on hand that we know that countries will be interested in getting answers to, just again for us to cater the information that we'll be presenting and discussing and providing within these transparency clinic sessions. I also think that one thing that we really would hope to see in this, obviously we know that each country is probably only bringing 1 to 2 participants, and you know, it's not exhaustive, the work that you do within your own ministries and your own departments. And so it would be really great if perhaps, especially for this question section, for the teams maybe who are, you know, working more granularly on certain chapters or on the BTR and the NDC, if you maybe want to go to them and ask them if they have any specific questions that they want to see answered at the training. I think this would be a really good opportunity in order to add this in to make sure that the voices of the teams who are doing the work, in addition to you, the participants who will be joining, that their questions and answers also get seen too. So if you just move on to the next slide. Thank you. So of course, yeah, we'll be sharing that document with you after this meeting today. And of course, if you have any questions on this, we have a question and answers in a little bit, but also you can reach out to us on email once we've sent this. So I think one of the main things that we really want to see at this training, and I know it's been discussed kind of at length already in today's session, is to make this training the most significant and beneficial that it can be. We really want to see participation from all our participants across all of the different sessions. Obviously, again, I know that for the participants that are joining in person, you know, the work you do is not completely exhaustive. It might be specific to certain areas. And so there might, you know, maybe there are aspects of this training that aren't relevant to the particular work that you do on the day-to-day. But in order to stay engaged and participate across these sessions to make the training, you know, as beneficial as it can be for yourself, but also for the wider teams back in your national governments. So yeah, active engagement across all the presentations and exercises. And of course, we're going to have our facilitator, Salif, on site, who is going to be helping to make sure that the energy stays high, because obviously this is an intensive 4-day workshop. So we understand that it will get, people can get tired, etc. Again, we want to really hear your questions and the perspectives from your countries. Getting this information and understanding on the national circumstances of each of your countries is really important, and it also helps to stimulate some of that peer-to-peer learning that we were talking about, especially for the countries who will be sharing experiences and participating in the panel discussions. And just if your country isn't one of these countries that are selected to share experience or participate in these panels, we also really want you to keep engaging in the question and answers parts of these sessions, to kind of gain that further information and insight. And most importantly, we really want everyone to come with an attitude that's really willing to learn and open to the different things that are going to be discussed. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing everyone and engaging out with everyone I think it's very close now. It's about 10 days away. So just in terms of how you can maybe prepare, especially for some of the exercises, and just to make sure that you kind of have the right lenses on in relation to the topics that we're going to be discussing about. I really think it would be beneficial for countries and participants, for the countries attending, to make sure that they are kind of up to date in the content of your BTR, whether it's published or whether it's still in development, and also your NIDs, and maybe have, an understanding or overview of the content of your most recent or your first NDC commitments and other kind of national documents. And again, I know I mentioned it in relation to the form that we'll be sending out for countries to fill in, but it would be really great to kind of gather some questions from the teams that are working more discreetly on certain chapters of the BTR that's kind of going to be covered in the session. So maybe especially for the NDC tracking, but obviously not limited to that. Also, the teams working on NDC 3.0 and on the FTC chapters. So please feel free to gather as many questions as you like, and we're going to create a repository of all these questions, both before and during the workshop as well. Just move on to the next slide. And yeah, just for your own information, some of the key aspects and maybe the key technical parts of the BTR and NDCs that we're going to be looking at, I've just listed on the slide here. So obviously there's exercises that are going to be focused on the NDC tracking CTF table 3. You're also the CTF 1 and appendix for the NDC, the CTF table 5 for the NDC, and then the CTF 7 to 11, which is of course on the projections for the NDC tracking chapter as well. And then obviously we were going to be having the session on the financial technology development and capacity building support needed and received. So kind of having an understanding of the content that is required as a part of these tables, just going into these sessions will, I think, be really helpful. And also, if your country has reported on this chapter, which is, of course, it's non-mandatory, so it's not an essential requirement for countries to report on. So maybe you might be omitting to report on it at present, but if your country has reported on it, then please be sure to be up to date on that. So if I can just go through the next steps, if you just move on to the next slide, Sheila. So, like I said, we'll be sending the template to get kind of our understanding for the open clinic after this session, along with the recordings and the presentations. And we want one of these documents filled in per country. So if you could, the participants from each country, I know there's probably around 2 per country. If you could liaise between yourselves and one of you to send on the document to me and the team here, that would be great. And in the interest of, allowing enough time for us to then kind of center and prepare for the clinic, we're going to give you 1 week to fill in this table. I hope that's enough time. I think it should be. So by the end of next Thursday, so the 1st of May, we would really like to have everyone's filled in forms. If you just move on to the next slide. And just before as well, we move on just to any final Q&A. I did just want to give a bit of an update on the clarifications about travel and the visa requirements, just because I know that we have had a few emails in relation to that. So I just wanted to confirm with all participants that Seychelles is a visa-free country. This information has been taken from their immigration website, and Willis from the Seychelles has also confirmed this with us as well. So no one has to apply for a visa before they get there. One thing they have to do, though, is before they travel, you have to submit a travel authorization and immigration form. So this form, which you can access through this link here, and it's also accessible if you just Google it on or search it on whatever search engine you use. You need to fill in after you have the confirmation of your accommodation and the confirmation of your flights. And the details that you'll be asked to fill in is you'll be asked to submit a scan of your passport, which you've all already provided for us, so I'm sure you all have on hand. You then have to provide a sort of it's like a selfie or a picture of your face with kind of no background. And I think they let you use your webcam as you're doing it, so you can also just take the picture as you're applying for the forms. You then have to then provide the information on your nationality, your reasons for travel, information on your ticket, your accommodation, where you're going to be staying, flight numbers, and then you upload the documents relating to that. And you also have to provide evidence of an active credit or debit card to show that you obviously have the relevant funds available in order to fund your stay while you're in the Seychelles. But it's really easy, and it's a super quick form. It doesn't take a lot of time, and but you just have to make sure that you fill this in before you visit. But it isn't a visa. It's not a visa process. And just in relation to that, I think you all by this point should have received your emails in relation to travel and DSA and the logistics notes. And I just wanted to highlight again for those of the participants who DSA are going to be supported by CBIT GSB and other partners, could you please make sure to fill out the attached travel request information forms, so that we can make sure that this information, that we have this information on file to make sure that you get all your relevant DSA. So we just move on to the next slide, Sheila. So I'll hand over now back to Rebecca and Sheila. If we want, maybe we could do the question and answers now. Yeah, okay, perfect. I can see we'll have a bit of time for question and answers then in relating to the information that I've just set out for the content of the exercises, but also some of the travel stuff. So Golivati, I see your hand is raised if you want to ask your question.
Thank you, Freya.
No problem.
Mine is just a quick one. I think maybe for also the benefit of others. Of course, I've responded to your email on the travel request. Yeah, just to seek clarity on the last, I think 3 or 4 rows on the form, because it's talking about lunch, if lunch is provided. So it's not clear as to whether is it in line to the workshop itself or in the course of travel. It's not clear.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I remember seeing your email this morning actually, and sorry for not being able to get back to you just yet. But yeah, just in relation to those questions at the end of the form in relation to meals. One, we just want to know if anyone has any dietary requirements, because we will be providing lunch as a part of the workshop days. So that is 4 lunches that are going to be provided. But also if you have, this is only really relevant if you've already booked any of your accommodation, but if as a part of your accommodation you have breakfast and dinner included, we just need a note of that within our systems, because it maybe slightly adjusts the DSA, which is provided, but it's usually nothing. And if you don't have that information to hand at the moment, it's fine, just leave it blank. But I think the key one that we really want to get the information on is in relation to lunch, because that will be provided as a part of the training. And yeah, we just want to know that everyone has their dietary requirements seen to. So I hope, so my recommendation on those sections would just to write NA in the breakfast and dinner sections, and just to focus on the lunch bit. So I hope that's answered your question. And also if anyone else had also had thoughts on that, I hope that that is clear. But if anyone else has any other questions relating to the overall format and the manner in which the training is going to be carried out, then please let me know. Yeah, of course, please make sure to just mention if you need halal requirements as part of your foods within the TRI. That's completely fine, and we can of course try to accommodate everyone's dietary requirements. But of course, if we would request that people try and give us this information as soon as possible, just so that we can relay it onto the conference and the hotel center where this will be taking place. I can see you've got your hand raised again. Golivati?
Thank you for giving me another floor. This one now is just, I'm not sure if the detailed agenda was circulated.
Okay.
Or
I thought maybe the agenda was shared on our invitation on the climate transparency platform. I think the agenda is linked, but if not, we will send along with our materials that we have set out today. So the presentation, the recording, and the information sheet to be filled in. We can also share the revised and kind of final agenda with all the participants.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful in terms of preparation. Yeah, especially those that will be participating in the panel.
Yes, yeah, of course. And yeah, the information on the countries who will be asked to kind of provide and share experiences in the panel will be reached out to directly by the team and by Sheila. So yeah, you'll get the information on that as well. I am conscious that there is only 5 minutes left, and we do have one more quick feedback survey. If anyone has any other questions, please, of course, send them over email. We are more than willing to help try to answer all your questions. I know kind of organizing travel and logistics is pretty stressful. So I'll see that Sheila's got her hand raised. So I'll just hand over to Sheila for the Menti as well and for her question.
Okay, thank you so much, Freya, about providing feedback on to participants about the agenda and also about the different groups and exercises. But from what we have presented, I would request, if you have identified an area where you think you can support in terms of the exercises, you can still reach out so that we slot you for that. But we shall be sharing the final agenda on Friday. Yeah, that's the information I want to provide. I would like to hand over back to Rebecca, our moderator.
Thanks so much, Sheila, and thanks, Freya, for those inputs. Really great to hear what will be happening. Looking forward to it. And yes, as mentioned, we have 4 minutes left. So to close off, I'd hand back over to Sheila for some closing remarks and taking us through a short survey. So back over to you, Sheila, for the closing remarks. And thank you, everyone, for your participation so far.
Yes, do I really have closing remarks? I would like to thank everyone for participating in this webinar. I think it was really helpful. I would like to let you know that if you have any question, kindly reach out to us in time so that we are able to, we shall try as much as possible to provide the necessary feedback in time. But if we have some delays, kindly keep reaching out until we answer, because we receive so many emails due to the nature of the event. So we will appreciate if you can always reach out to us. Yeah, so I have shared the Menti for the feedback. This feedback is very important, as for some of you have started with us, you have seen several improvements, and those improvements have been as a result of your feedback. So we usually improve based on what you provide, information you provide with us. So it's very important that you participate. I know it's almost time, but it's fine. We shall wait until we can get feedback from you. So kindly log on to your Menti, www.menti.com. Enter the code 86805907, or you can use a scan QR code on your screen. You can use your mobile gadget to scan the code so that you can enter. There are just a few questions. So the first question is, what is your key takeaway from this webinar? We would want to know, and that would also help us to know how we can improve in future. I have no participants as yet, so let me still go on this instructions page. Kindly enter into www.menti.com. The code is 86805907. I will wait until I can get a few. Yes, I have one response. So the key takeaway is BTRs are linked to NDC. That is a very good one. Yeah, so that at least as we go into deep in the subject, I will be expecting more information on that. It is very informative and provides guidance on UNFCCC reporting process, proper guidance on planning for the workshop. Thank you. NDC and BTR, thank you for those key responses. Enhanced transparency process, thank you. We appreciate the fast learning. Your very first countries are in initial stages of preparation. Yes, that was very informative for even us on our side. So that is very good. We have 8 responses. We have gone ahead to the next question, but kindly log on so that you can get reasonable responses from all of you. Everything is clear for the upcoming training. Planning NDC is based on BTR. Yeah, thank you for that key learning. And then BTR and NDC linkage, yes. Yeah, thank you for the responses. So we shall go to our next question. How satisfied are you with this webinar? Someone is very satisfied. Yeah, thank you for the responses. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for these responses and feedback. So we shall go to our next question. How relevant was this webinar for your work? Yeah, thank you. I can see at least we got, which means we got the expected participants. Sometimes it's difficult when we get nominations. We are not very sure, but I'm happy that it is relevant for your work, which means you are the ideal candidates for this training. Thank you for the feedback. Do you have any other comments you would like to share with us? Any other comments? Okay, someone doesn't have a comment. Please share presentations. Yes, so whatever you have seen today, we are going to upload it on the platform. You have seen the event page, so that's where the information will be uploaded, including the video recording for this. Yeah, be good for countries to share some best practices they used. Yes, we are looking forward for countries to share. So we hope that during the workshop, we should be able to get that one. Share meeting paperwork well on time. Yes, we shall be sharing that by close of business today. Thank you. The workshop will be important for future improvements. Yes, can you share via email? But it would be good also to utilize our platform. If you don't visit our platform, it's not good. It's as good as not being there. So we encouraged you to visit our platform. And if you are not registered, kindly write to me. I will ensure that you are registered. Looking forward to the insightful training. Please share the presentation delivered today. This is already presupposes to be useful training. Looking forward, consider more time for hands-on and practical experience sharing during the meeting. Yes, so we shall ensure that we create some more time for sharing of experience, share presentations. Thank you for the feedback. Looking forward to the exercises. Limited time needed, more time to have case studies during the workshop, share best practices, lessons learned. Yeah, thank you so much for this feedback. We usually use this feedback to improve. Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate. Yeah, I will hand over to Rebecca to close the webinar.
Thank you so much, Sheila, and thank you to everyone for your participation. It's great to see that the webinar was really useful today, and we really look forward to welcoming you to the training. Please do feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. We're here for you to help you, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.